The Cleveland Browns coaching staff just handed Shedeur Sanders the worst possible situation an NFL rookie quarterback can be handed, and then had the nerve to stand at the podium afterward and pretend everything is fine. Let me be entirely clear with you right now, and I need you to listen closely. What happened to Shedeur Sanders in this game was not a learning experience. It was not a rough day at the office. It was an absolute, undeniable organizational failure dropped directly onto the shoulders of a first-year quarterback who deserved better from every single person above him on that depth chart. Welcome back. This is hot news, and today we are ripping the doors off the Browns organization and exposing the catastrophic environment they have built around Shedeur Sanders. The conversation that the NFL's television partners absolutely refuse to have out loud. Let me set the table for you before we go any further, because the full picture here is brutal, and the establishment does not want you sitting with it for too long. Shedeur Sanders walked into that post-game press conference after a loss that was not entirely or even primarily his fault, and he handled it with more class and more composure than the organization surrounding him deserves. He sat down in front of those microphones, answered every single question, took accountability for his own performance, and did it all without throwing a single person under the bus. That is the part of this story the press release skipped. That is the part of this story that the people running the Browns organization should be embarrassed about. Because the contrast between how Shedeur Sanders carried himself and how that organization has set him up is agonizing to watch. Now let's get into the actual evidence. Because I have been documenting this situation, and I am telling you, every layer you peel back makes this worse. Start with the most basic, undeniable fact on the table. The Browns went into this game down 14 points. Down 14. And when you are a rookie quarterback already operating behind an offensive line that has been rotating personnel and cycling through new faces at a rate that makes it nearly impossible to build any kind of cohesion or rhythm, being down 14 points early does not just make the game harder, it makes the entire offensive game plan collapse. The running game disappears, the play action disappears, every defense in the league knows you are throwing, and suddenly Shedeur Sanders is out there trying to move the ball with no run game to lean on and no consistent protection in front of him. Shedeur Sanders acknowledged it himself at the podium. He was direct about it. He said he just has to get the offense out of those situations, get the ball out of his hand, keep the team in manageable down and distance scenarios. He took the accountability. He owned it. But here is what I need you to understand. A rookie quarterback should not be the one absorbing the blame for a structural failure that the coaching staff and the front office created. The offensive line situation on this Browns team is not Shedeur Sanders' fault. It is not something he controls. And yet he is the one standing at the microphone taking the weight of it. Think about what was happening on that sideline during this game. A reporter asked Shedeur about his wristband, the play call card that quarterbacks wear on their wrist to reference the game plan in real time. It fell out on the sideline, just fell out, after the first 2 drives. Now, I am not going to turn a wristband falling out into the smoking gun of the century, but I want you to sit with what that represents. In a game where the offense could not get into rhythm, where Shedeur was already fighting to get things going, the physical tool he uses to reference play calls, gone. Fell out on the sideline. And the Browns coaching staff, the people responsible for making sure their rookie quarterback has everything he needs to operate efficiently, apparently did not catch it fast enough to prevent it from becoming a talking point at the post-game podium. That is an organizational detail. That is a preparation detail, and it failed. Now let's talk about Jerry Jeudy, because this is a specific, traceable moment that tells you everything about the environment Shedeur Sanders is operating in. There was a play in this game, a big play, a critical moment, where Jerry Jeudy ran himself out of bounds. A route that should have been a connection, a potential momentum swing, ended with Jeudy out of bounds and the play dead. It was the kind of mistake that costs drives, the kind of mistake that costs points. And when Shedeur Sanders was asked about it at the podium, here is what he said, and I want you to hear this, because it tells you who Shedeur Sanders actually is as a person and as a teammate. He said it is going to happen. He said he is not the kind of person to kick somebody when they are down. He said Jerry Jeudy understands it was a big play and is already hard on himself. He said there is no need to be extra about it. Jerry Jeudy, running himself out of bounds on a critical play. Shedeur Sanders, defending him at the podium. That is the kind of character that the Browns coaching staff is failing to protect. That is the kind of leadership that the Browns organization is wasting by surrounding this quarterback with a broken infrastructure. Let me walk you through the full scope of what Shedeur Sanders was dealing with in this game, because the evidence is stacked and the establishment does not want you looking at all of it at once. The offensive line. The Browns have had so many personnel changes up front, so many new faces cycling in and out, that building any kind of consistent chemistry is nearly impossible. Shedeur Sanders is a rookie. Rookies need repetition. They need to develop trust with the people blocking for them. They need to know that when they drop back, the pocket is going to hold for at least a moment. When you are rotating linemen, when you are dealing with injuries and replacements and new combinations, you are not giving your quarterback that foundation. You are setting him up to fail and then watching him fail and calling it a learning experience. That is not development. That is negligence. The play calls, the offensive scheme. Shedeur Sanders said at the podium that everything they showed on film, the offense felt they could execute. He said that is on him, getting the team into the right situations, getting the ball out of his hand. But listen to what he is actually describing. A game plan that looked right on film and then could not be executed on the field. That gap between what the coaching staff drew up and what actually happened, that is a coaching failure. That is a scheme failure. When your rookie quarterback is standing at the podium absorbing accountability for a game plan that did not translate from the film room to the field, something is wrong with the people who designed the game plan, not with the player trying to run it. And then there is the rhythm problem. Shedeur Sanders said it plainly. It was just hard to get into rhythm. That is all it was. And that sentence, as simple as it sounds, is actually a devastating indictment of everything around him. Getting into rhythm as a quarterback requires consistent play calling, consistent protection, consistent route running from your receivers, and consistent down and distance situations. When you are down 14 points, when your wristband falls out, when Jerry Jeudy runs himself out of bounds on a critical play, when your offensive line is cycling through new personnel, you do not get rhythm, you get chaos. And then the coaching staff gets to stand at the podium and talk about the process being long. The process is long. That is what the Browns organization is selling right now. The process. Let me tell you what the process looks like from where Shedeur Sanders is standing. Last week, he threw 4 touchdowns. 4. He went out there and he produced. He showed what he is capable of when the pieces around him are functioning. And then this week, the pieces fell apart. The line, the receiver running out of bounds, the rhythm disappearing. And suddenly the process is long. 4 touchdowns one week, 3 interceptions the next. And the conversation TV wants to have is about whether Shedeur Sanders is developing fast enough. That is the conversation the establishment is steering you toward. I am steering you somewhere else. The conversation we should be having is about why the Browns coaching staff cannot provide their quarterback with a consistent environment from one week to the next. Let me be entirely clear with you about something, because I want every single person watching this video to understand what they are actually watching when they watch Shedeur Sanders at that podium. They are watching a young man who has been dropped into one of the most dysfunctional quarterback situations in the league, who just played through cold weather conditions. Conditions he has experience with from 2 years in Colorado and from playing in Mississippi, who lost his play call wristband on the sideline, who watched his receiver run himself out of bounds on a critical play, who was playing from behind for most of the game with a depleted running game, and who still walked to that microphone and said, quote, "I didn't do good." That's what sums it up. That is accountability. Real, unfiltered, no excuses accountability. Shedeur Sanders looked into those cameras and said he did not play well and that he needs to be better. He did not point at the offensive line. He did not point at Jerry Jeudy. He did not point at the coaching staff or the game plan or the wristband that fell out on the sideline. He pointed at himself. And the brutal, soul-crushing irony of this entire situation is that the one person in that building with the least culpability for what went wrong is the one person taking the most accountability for it. Now let's talk about the head coach, Kevin Stefanski, because this is where the outrage escalates to a level that I think a lot of people are not fully processing yet. After the game, Stefanski said he is sticking with Shedeur Sanders. He is keeping him as the starter, and when Shedeur was asked about it at the podium, his response was telling. He said Stefanski said that kind of last week too, and then he paused, and then he said, "I don't know." 2 words, "I don't know." That is a rookie quarterback who has been told he is the starter, who has been told the organization believes in him, and who is not entirely sure what that commitment actually means or how durable it is. That is not a quarterback who feels secure in his environment. That is a quarterback who is operating with uncertainty hanging over every snap. And Shedeur Sanders addressed that directly. He said you can lose your job at any point in time. He said he does not play with fear. He said when you live and play with fear, you cannot be yourself. He said he lives each moment, tries to live each day to the fullest, and never lives in worry or fear. Let that sink in. Let that actually sink in. A rookie quarterback in the middle of a brutal stretch with an offensive line that cannot stay healthy, with a receiver who just ran himself out of bounds on a critical play, with a wristband that fell off on the sideline, with a coaching staff that is offering him commitment that he himself is not sure how to read, and he is standing there telling you he does not live in fear. That is not bravado. That is survival. That is a young man who has decided that the only way to get through this situation is to refuse to let the chaos around him become the chaos inside him. The Browns coaching staff does not deserve that kind of mental fortitude from their quarterback. They have not earned it. They have not built the infrastructure around Shedeur Sanders that would justify his continued belief in this process. And yet there he is, week after week, taking the accountability, defending his teammates, refusing to panic, and telling the world he does not play with fear. I want to talk about Isaiah because Shedeur Sanders mentioned him at the podium, and it was one of the most genuine moments of the entire press conference. He said the team needs to use Isaiah more for his skill set, for his athleticism, and keep developing him as a player. He said he is thankful to have him and thankful to be able to spend time with him. That is a quarterback who is actively trying to build something, actively trying to find the pieces that work, identify the connections that can be developed, and grow the offense from within. That is quarterback leadership. That is what you want from the person under center. And the Browns coaching staff needs to start matching that energy, because right now the gap between what Shedeur Sanders is bringing to this situation and what the organization is building around him is undeniable, and it is getting harder to ignore. There is also the matter of the defense they faced. Shedeur Sanders gave them credit. He said they had a great defensive scheme, that they did a lot of great things, that he enjoyed the challenge of playing against them and looks forward to learning from the film. That is a mature read from a young quarterback. He is not making excuses about the defense. He is not saying the scheme was impossible to crack. He is saying he wants to study the film and learn from it. But here is the thing the establishment does not want you to look at. When your offensive line cannot hold up, when your receiver is running himself out of bounds, when you are down 14 points early and the running game has evaporated, no amount of film study fixes the structural problems that the coaching staff and the front office have created. Shedeur Sanders can study every defensive scheme in the league. He can be the most prepared quarterback on the planet, and none of it matters if the people around him keep failing him on game day. I am going to put my name on this. If the Browns coaching staff does not make substantive, visible changes to the environment they have built around Shedeur Sanders, if they do not address the offensive line instability, if they do not put a real game plan around his strengths, if they do not start protecting this quarterback the way a franchise-caliber player deserves to be protected, this situation is going to get worse before it gets better. Come back here and roast me in the comments if I am wrong, but I am not wrong. The pattern is too clean. The evidence is too clear. The Browns coaching staff has failed Shedeur Sanders at the organizational level, and the only reason the mainstream conversation is not screaming about it is because it is easier to put the development narrative on the rookie than to hold the adults in the building accountable. Shedeur Sanders is right now, today, in the present tense, doing the hardest thing a rookie quarterback can do. He is absorbing chaos, maintaining composure, defending his teammates, taking accountability without excuses, and refusing to live in fear. He is doing all of that in an environment that has given him every reason to crack, and he is not cracking. The Browns coaching staff should be embarrassed by the contrast. Kevin Stefanski should be looking in the mirror. Jerry Jeudy needs to be better. The offensive line situation needs to be fixed, and the entire Browns organization needs to understand that the grace and the accountability and the fearlessness that Shedeur Sanders is showing them right now is not something they are entitled to forever. At some point, the organization has to start meeting this quarterback where he is. Drop your most honest take in the comments below. Is the Browns coaching staff actively failing Shedeur Sanders with the environment they have built around him? Or is this just the unavoidable reality of being a rookie quarterback on a rebuilding team? I want every opinion that is willing to commit to one side. No fence-sitting. Pick a lane and defend it, because this conversation matters and the people inside that building are paying attention to what the fan base actually thinks. Hit the notification bell because this Browns situation is unraveling in real time and the next development is coming faster than the organization wants to admit. We will see you in the next video.